Hello.
Hello, Sean.
Hello, Sean. Let me try that again. Carol. Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tech Tuesday. And we've been covering the subject of sports nutrition over the past couple of weeks. And all being well, I'll be able to end that off tonight. As we finish up this rather, I've discovered, interesting topic where we all talk about nutrition, we know about athletes, but I know I didn't realize quite how involved and technical sports nutrition actually is, because we are dealing with people who are essentially extremely fine-tuned machines, and as a result have to get fueled like an extremely fine-tuned machine, just like any Formula One race car or motorbike. Those guys measure to the millimeter and to the micrometer clearances and tolerances and oil and fuel and air pressure and the whole bang shoot. And our athletes, specifically the professional athletes, are very much the same. And obviously we don't have the oil and the fuel, etc., but we do to a certain extent in the form of nutrition. And just by eating a normal diet, most athletes are not going to feasibly get the nutrition that they need, especially when it comes to professional levels, because they need to have the energy to get through whatever sport they're participating in, and they need to be able to recover. And specifically, we are talking the professionals, where often large amounts of money are involved, and they don't have the luxury of recovery from injuries like the rest of us do, because there's large amounts of money revolving around them. So they, through numerous methods, have to be boosted to allow them to, first of all, not really injure themselves, but if they do get injured, to be able to recover very quickly. So we've covered a few of the basics on sports nutrition over the last couple of weeks. Feel free to go back and check out the recordings. And last week we started covering 5 tested supplements. And last week we covered fish oil as the first one, because as we know, supplements in general are not really high on the level for scientific research, purely because it's not always financially viable to be able to do this research, which costs vast amounts of money. So last week we covered fish oil, which has been researched and, in my opinion, is probably one of the best natural anti-inflammatories you're going to get, but it also has a lot of other good uses. Now let me share my screen, continue on with my presentation that I started up over here. Sorry, my system's a little bit slow tonight. Find these goodies. Okay. Find a few other pictures as well. So this week we're going to continue on with the BCAAs, or the branch chain amino acids. These contain things like leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which have an important role in protein synthesis and glucose uptake into our cells. Remember, our bodies are made up of trillions of cells, and you are really only as healthy, probably as fit as your cells are. So if your cells are not operating at optimum levels, imagine your car with a dirty filter, air filter, fuel filter, oil filter. If you've got dirty filters in your car engine, it might get you from point A to B, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to become very expensive. If not straight away, certainly in the long run. Now, the amino acids is what essentially the building blocks of our body, and some of them are more important than others. As we found out, there are, dependent on which research you go into, between 20 and 22 amino acids. So these specific ones have important functions post-exercise and for overall muscle building and recovery. Remember, you've got 3 stages of any sport. You've got training or practice, you've got competition, and then you've got recovery. BCAAs can be obtained by eating lean protein. People on certain specialized diets, pardon me, or athletic training plans may use them. But for many people, supplementation is not necessary because they can get the nutrients from their daily diet. And as we have often said, you speak to pretty much any medical practitioner, and they will tell you that you don't need to supplement because you can get everything you need from your diet. Now, I'm not going to argue about that one. It is very, very true. You can get everything you need from your diet. The question is, are you getting everything that you need from your diet? And as an athlete, you are probably going to spend more time eating than training if you're trying to get the optimum amounts of the nutrition that you need. Now, not all protein supplements are created equal, so please do careful research before using one. There are a lot of them that are synthetic, and it can actually end up harming specifically things like your kidneys. So some of the stories about protein and some of the things that we know about it, it's vital, but you need to be aware of what's going in there. So the word protein means of first importance. Protein is the central substance that makes life possible on Earth. Its very existence and nature are a mystery. Proteins and the amino acids from which they are made are very complicated substances. There are 22 amino acids which are involved in building a multitude of proteins. 9 are considered essential because they cannot be manufactured in the human body. Non-essential amino acids can be conditionally essential as a result of conditions such as stress, toxicity, or pregnancy. Amino acids link together to form chains called peptides. Peptides are proteins. Now, the average protein has about 120 amino acids, but some are much larger than that. So think of a chain, and this is exactly where the BCAA comes from, is it's chains of these things. Proteins must be broken down into amino acids by the digestive tract to be of nutritional value. Because it's no good eating a large steak, which obviously is protein, and your body can't utilize that because it has to break that down into things that the body can use. The complete amino acid sequence of one of the simplest proteins was mapped in 1953 by Frederick Sanger. And this is just one of the proteins. That molecule was insulin. That project took 8 years from start to finish. The arrangement of amino acids in a protein must be very specific for the protein to function properly. Do we live in an amazing machine or what? Variation of only one amino acid can cause a protein to cease performing its function. The insulin of a cow differs from human insulin by 3 amino acids. Many scientists think that feeding infants cow's milk causes autoimmune attack against the infant's pancreas, resulting in type 1 or juvenile diabetes. It's quite a scary thought, that. Synthetic amino acids, such as DL-methionine, are sometimes added to protein supplements to improve the amino acid profile, although the nutritional benefits are questionable. As I've always said and always will say, Our bodies, cleverly designed as they are designed to eat food. Therefore, if you put in a synthetic supplement of whatever sort, your body first of all has to try and break it down, figure out exactly what it is and how and if it can use it, or if it needs to treat it as a toxin. If you have a food-sourced supplement, your body recognizes the food because it's got the blueprints for it. It knows exactly what to do with it, and it can break it down and utilize it in the exact form that it needs to be done. So try not to mix in synthetics. Now, proteins fold. Proper functioning of proteins is dependent upon proper folding. Think of your laundry. You can fold it correctly and put a whole lot of laundry into your cupboard, or you can bundle it all up in a bunch and chuck it in. You're probably not going to get quite as much into your cupboard as you do if you fold it properly. Nearly all types of proteins bend and twist back and forth in an amazing, highly complex three-dimensional pattern. I'm sure this has been described or developed or turned into a graphic somewhere, but I haven't been able to find that graphic because I'm sure it must look quite fascinating. If these folds do not occur in the proper way, the protein cannot perform its function in the body properly. Think of the box that your supplements get delivered in if your supplements get delivered to you. That box starts off as a flat piece of card or cardboard. It is then cut and it has little folds put into it. If those folds are not put in correctly, you're not going to get the box that your supplements come in. You're going to get a mess of cardboard. It has to be done correctly. It has to be cut and pre-folded in the correct spots for that box to become a box and not a ball. Protein works the same way. Now, cooking can destroy this elaborate three-dimensional folded pattern of protein. Proteins hold a straight line pattern while being synthesized. As soon as a new protein has been manufactured, it automatically folds itself into the correct three-dimensional pattern in a fraction of a second. No computer can do that. Proteins have parts which like water and parts that do not like water. Water-fearing protein components fold to the inside of the protein molecule, while the parts that like water move to the outside. This is an extremely complex design. Proteins have the ability to chemically alter other substances to receive and incorporate special information within themselves and to alter their own behavior in response to this information. So we're going to look at quality protein. Quality protein is actually quite hard to find. Corn-fed meats are saturated with inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids. Pardon me. Government agencies have attempted to eradicate raw milk. To achieve a high-quality protein, both quality raw materials and processing technology are of great importance. Neolife uses the highest quality raw materials, including the exclusion of synthetic amino acids, as well as genetically modified ingredients. The technological difference in manufacture is called the Protogard process. Protein structure and nutritional value is damaged by high temperature, acids, or bases. The Protogard process therefore protects the amino acids by blending high-quality raw materials at low temperatures and allowing plant-based enzymes to pre-digest the protein. In other words, when you drink the protein, your body doesn't have to still try and break it down, or part of it anyway. It can use it immediately. The official protein quality assessment method is called the PDCAAS, or the Protein Digestibility corrected amino acid score. Quite a mouthful. Don't worry about what all those letters stand for. This means of quality assessment involved first identifying the limiting amino acid in a protein formula. This is followed by taking into account the digestibility of the protein involved. The result is a number score. The highest quality natural sources of protein have a score of about 1.0. All near-life protein products have PDCAAS score of 1.0 or significantly greater. I'm under correction, but I think our near-life shake, as we currently are using it, has a score of about 1.7. The high scores are a consequence of not only choosing the finest quality raw materials, but also the pre-digestion technology, which is an outgrowth of the Protogard process. And as far as I know, has stemmed from the use of that fancy little machine developed by the company called the artificial stomach. All near-life protein products contain all 22 amino acids considered important for human nutrition. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at that has been tested and verified is vitamin D. According to the National Institutes of Health, most people in the US consume less than the recommended amounts of vitamin D. Dairy products contain vitamin D, and it is also absorbed through natural sunlight. It's essential to include a source of vitamin D daily to maintain optimal health and fitness. Here in Africa, most of us are quite blessed because we have access to sunshine pretty much on a daily basis. Obviously, there are parts of the country where in winter you don't want to have a lot of skin exposed to the sun, whereas here down at the coast, we're quite happy to have skin exposed to the sun pretty much any time of the year. We do complain about the cold occasionally, but what I term cold and what people from the cooler climes of the country term cold is a significant difference. An abstract published by Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise states that vitamin D may improve athletic performance in vitamin D deficient athletes and may also protect the athlete from several acute and chronic medical conditions. Now, in my opinion, athletes who spend a lot of time outdoors, think soccer players, rugby players, hockey players, runners, those guys generally, and even cyclists for that matter, generally get probably pretty close to their sufficient vitamin D. People who take part in indoor sports, and we're talking basketball, we're talking gymnastics, we're talking gyms, they do not get a lot of sun exposure, and therefore they need to supplement. According to an article published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports, despite the limited evidence available at the time, athletes and trainers in the early 20th century believed that UVB radiation was beneficial to athletic performance. Accumulating evidence supports the existence of a functional role for vitamin D in skeletal muscle, with potentially significant impacts on both the performance and injury profiles of young, otherwise healthy athletes. So if you're an athlete and you want to perform well and you want to protect yourself from breaking bones too easily, not saying it's impossible, but you want to take a vitamin D supplement. And even if you are spending quite a bit of time outside in the sunshine, check with your nutritionist. You might still need to take extra vitamin D. So the next thing that is considered a supplement is caffeine. Now, we obviously all know caffeine in coffee. This little graphic gives you an idea of how much caffeine is found in various different drinks. Because I'm running out of time, I'll let you go through it on your own later. But caffeine is typically one of the top ingredients for fat-burning supplements, weight loss products, and performance enhancers. A great cup of black coffee can deliver the metabolism boost, plus provide bonus antioxidants. More is not better, however, when it comes to caffeine, and proceed with caution before using this product, because if you have too much, it can show in a drug test, and you could get booted out of your particular competition because of a performance enhancing supplement, which is simply caffeine. In an International Society of Sports Nutrition position stand, Caffeine and Performance, it is evidence that caffeine is indeed ergogenic to sport performance, but is specific to the condition of the athlete as well as the intensity, duration, and mode of exercise. Also indicated in a 2014 Harvard Health publication, not only is caffeine a brain stimulant, but it also blocks receptors, giving you a surge of energy and potentially improving mental performance and slowing age-related mental decline. Guidelines suggest that ingesting a low to moderate dose of caffeine, ranging from 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, approximately 60 minutes prior to exercise, can provide benefits. So possibly some near-life tea about an hour before your performance could benefit you. The next thing is creatine. Creatine is one of the most researched and widely used supplements to enhance muscle building and strength. Unfortunately, it also gets abused. Creatine supplies energy to your muscles for contraction. It is naturally occurring in the body, but is also found in foods like meat, dairy, and eggs. Creatine monohydrate is one of the most popular supplements on the market for athletes, but there is also some emerging evidence that it may provide benefits for older adults in the prevention of sarcopenia, which is the loss of skeletal muscle mass. So if you think that you are wasting away, maybe you need some more creatine in your diet. Traditionally, creatine monohydrate was believed to primarily benefit athletes who participated in high-intensity, intermittent resistant power type activities. Think things like tennis, rugby, soccer, hockey, that kind of thing. But there is some evidence that it may also improve muscle glycogen storage for athletes who deplete large amounts of glycogen during training and or during sporting events. Think long distance running, like Two Oceans, Comrades, etc. Research suggests that creatine supplementation in adults is relatively well tolerated at a dose of 3 to 5 grams per day or 0.1 gram per kilogram of body mass per day. So you do need to be very, very careful when taking this sort of thing. Now, there are also certain special circumstances, such as the vegetarian athlete. A vegetarian diet contains high intakes of plant proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and nuts. It can be nutritionally adequate, but insufficient evidence exists on long-term vegetarianism and athletic performance. And I understand that a number of professional athletes who were vegetarians found that they couldn't keep up and have since, surprisingly enough or interestingly enough, not publicly said it, but gone away from vegetarianism and started eating animal proteins again. High altitude is another special circumstance because specialized training and nutrition are required for athletes training at high altitude. Think of Mount Everest. Increasing red blood cells to carry more oxygen is essential. Iron-rich foods are an important component for this athlete as well. Increased risk of illness is indicated with chronic high-altitude exposure because there's not enough oxygen over there. So your mountain climbers often end up with problems. Foods high in antioxidants and protein are essential in these people. And fluid requirements will vary per athlete, and hydration status should be individually monitored. Hot environments. Think Natal in February. Athletes competing in hot conditions are at much greater risk of heat illness. and this can also have adverse health complications. Fluid and electrolyte balance is crucial for these athletes. If you've ever watched an endurance athlete at the end of a race in summer, often those guys are staggering over the finish line. And it's usually because the fluid and electrolyte balance is out of whack. You also have the other extreme, which is cold environments. Primary concerns for athletes exercising in the cold are adequate hydration and body temperature. Leaner athletes are at higher risk of hypothermia. Modifying caloric and carbohydrate intake is important for this sort of athlete. Appropriate foods and fluids that withstand cold temperatures will promote optimal athletic performance. Eating disorders and deficiencies. Eating disorders in athletes are not uncommon. Think of jockeys, because they have to have a specific weight, so they tend to starve themselves and they do all sorts of weird and wonderful things to keep to that particular weight. Gymnasts are another one. Many athletes are required to maintain lean bodies and low body weight and exhibit muscular development. We're thinking specifically gymnasts and jockeys in this. Chronic competitive pressure can create psychological and physical stress of the athlete, leading to disordered eating habits. The most common eating disorder amongst athletes may include anorexia nervosa, bulimia, compulsive exercise disorder. Did you know such a thing existed? Orthorexia. And obviously the nutritional needs of these individuals greatly differ from that of other active adults or athletes. So this is more specifically your professional athletes. Additionally, athletes often restrict calories in certain food groups, which may potentially lead to deficiencies of essential micronutrients. Research indicates the most common micronutrient deficiencies include iron deficiency, which can impair muscle function and compromise athletic performance, vitamin D deficiency, which can result in decreased bone strength and reduced muscle metabolic function, calcium deficiency, which can impair the repair of bone tissue, decrease regulation of muscle contraction, and reduce nerve conduction. And that is the end of that little series. Does anybody have any questions or comments before I put us on stop?